1. I work in a department store and have had to deal with drunk customers before, staggering around the store and even trying to start pillow fights with me. But there was this one guy who terrified me. I'll start this by describing myself. I'm around 5'11", and kinda chubby, but by no means fat. I'm a little big and not easily intimidated by most people. My hair is red, but my bangs and 2 streaks of my hair are a green-teal colour. On this day in particular, I wasn't wearing a full face of makeup. Honestly, I think all I had time to do was some eyeliner, and I've got the unfortunate baby face. So this guy, I'd say around 6'2", walks up to me and asks if I can help him. He's got a slight accent, but I can't even place it. Kinda like an English accent, but it was just off. He's got greyish white hair and a goatee. I'm not great with age guessing, but he was at least old enough to be my dad, if not my grandpa. He's also what I describe as husky. A little fat, but overall just generally big, at least twice my size. He's also wearing a thick coat, but it was an unseasonably warm and sunny day, without a cloud in sight. He starts asking me about men's clothing, but he's talking under his breath, so it's hard to hear. So I lean in to hear him better. I think he's just asking where that department is, so I proceed to point him in the direction of the men's department. Then I hear him mumble something else, this time about young men sounding displeased. I ask, "Oh, if you're looking for young men's, that's in the front corner of the..." He cut me off mid-sentence, and his whole demeanor changed. He raised his voice. "What? Do I look like a young man to you? What? What are you, like 15? Then I watch as his eyes scan me up and down, almost as though he were checking me out. As if that outburst hadn't even happened, he calmly starts mumbling again, and I can't quite make out what he's saying. All I hear is that he's talking about my hair. It was like he was thinking out loud, but didn't realize it. Then, he clearly says he has to use the restroom, but once he's done, he wants me to help him find a dress shirt, and that he wants it to match my hair. I politely say, "Okay," and give him a fake laugh and smile, not knowing what else to do. As soon as he turns to walk away, I bolt to the other end of the store. I was panicking already because that encounter was just uncomfortable. So I'm trying to avoid him when a couple ask me for help. So I'm helping this couple, and they, of course, drag me back down to the end of the store where this guy is still waiting. In that time, one of my co-workers had the pleasure of talking to him for a moment, but he told her he didn't need any help. He was just standing there. So I'm helping the couple still, and I walk past him and he kinda shouts at me in an angry tone. It was quiet enough, but also too loud to be mistaken for a normal indoor voice. He said something along the lines of why was I ignoring him even though I had agreed to help him. That's when I really noticed his size, and the way he shifted his body as he took a step towards me. I felt like he was threatening me, and knew if he lunged, I wouldn't stand a chance. I tell him I wasn't ignoring him, and that I was just helping someone else. I hand off the item the couple was looking for, and direct my attention to him as he's waiting less than 5 feet behind me. I honestly didn't know what else to do. My body screamed run, but my head said if you do, something bad is going to happen. He told me he had already looked at shirts and didn't find what he wanted. So then he asks if I will walk him to the front doors. Alarm bells are sounding in my head. Don't want to go too close to the doors with this guy because who knows if he will grab me and drag me out into a waiting car or something. My heart was racing, but then I thought, my manager is in the front of the store at the jewelry counter, and if I walk the guy to there, I'll still be safe. He will be able to see the exit from there, but he won't be close enough to be able to kidnap me easily. So I walk up with him, and we're walking next to the bras and the aisles are kinda small. I realize he keeps trying to walk next to me, but the aisles are way too small for him to walk next to me without us touching. So we're weaving in and out of the fixtures in the center aisle, me trying to avoid him, and him trying to stand next to me. and then he starts to laugh. He mumbles some more. Something about, it's funny that we are weaving in and out of the brassiers. I'm thinking this is not funny at all. He proceeds to ask me why I dyed my hair. I look at him and say, I don't know, because I felt like it, I guess. Then he asks me how old I think he is. I reply with, and I don't know. Then he asks me again, but 5 seconds later I repeat, I don't know. He doesn't even tell me how old he is, and he tries to ask personal questions. He asks my middle name. I pause. The look he gave me was of pure frustration, so I gave him my middle name. I wish I could say I used a different name, but I didn't. I panicked, but I sure as hell wasn't giving this guy my last name. My middle name is pretty common anyways. He repeated my first and middle name back. He knew my first name because of my tag. I shuddered. My mom says it when she is mad, but him saying it actually scared me worse. We finally reached the front of the store. He asked me to take off my glasses. I slipped them down for a second, not even uncovering my eyes, and pushed them back up real quick. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to do. My training never covered this sort of a situation. I was terrified of what he might do should I refuse him. My instinct was telling me to oblige, so long as what he asked was somewhat harmless. After I did that, he says, "Ah yes, your eyes are beautiful, as I thought they'd be." I'm confused. Is he hitting on me? Didn't he just say I looked 15? What the fuck? We get to the front of the store, and he then asks me if I know why he wanted me to walk him to the front. I honestly tell him I don't know. He starts giggling to himself like a schoolgirl. If you've never heard a grown man giggle, let me just tell you, it's unsettling. He says, "Oh, you probably just think I'm a crazy old man." In my head, I'm screaming, "Yes, now get the fuck away from me." But I feel if I actually say yes, he is going to hurt me. He then says, "I wanted you to walk me to the front because I wanted to spend a little more time with you." I'm standing there like I don't even know this guy. This guy doesn't even know me. Why does he want to spend more time with me? I want to get away from him. My manager walks by and I shoot her the most horrified look, and she just smiles and waves, completely oblivious. Then he follows that up with, "Sometimes the Lord just brings people together." Not us, nope, fuck that. He reaches into his jacket and grabs hold of something. Then he quickly adds, "And sometimes he takes them away." He still had a hold of whatever is in his jacket. My heart sinks and I'm thinking, this is it. He's got a knife or a gun. He's going to murder me in this store right now. He's going to murder me and drag my body out and stuff it in his trunk. He follows that up with another, "You probably just think I'm a crazy old man." I pause to think on that, and I respond with a seemingly thought out, "No, not really." And then he lets go of whatever he had a hold of in his coat, and draws his hand back out. He looks at me intently, then after several seconds of awkward staring says, "And now I'm going to leave, and probably never see you again." I'm like, thank fucking God. He turns to leave, but whips his head back around. "But if I do happen to come back," his voice deepened, "don't call security on me." As soon as he turned around to walk out the door, I ran to the loss prevention office to hide. Loss prevention is the closest thing we have to security. My legs felt like jello, but I kept moving as if my life depended on it. I was then escorted to the back of the store to wait until they could confirm that he was indeed gone from the store. I waited for about a half hour before I went back out to finish my shift. When my shift ended, I waited around for a half hour more, so I would be able to walk out with someone else. The woman I walked out with had also encountered him by the register while I was hiding on the other end of the store. She proceeded to tell me that she thinks he was drunk. I'm still currently working at that same place, and I haven't seen him since. I hope we never meet again. 2. A few months ago, I was working at a certain establishment known for its scantily clad servers. Part of the job was sitting with the customers, especially the men, and talking with them in the hopes that they would tip you better. I'm an anxious person anyway, so I was never very good at that part. But every now and then, I would meet someone with whom I felt enough at ease to really get a conversation going. I had already been working there a few months, so I knew some of the regulars, at least by sight. This one dude would sit at the bar with his douchebag badge of honor, read vape, and a non-alcoholic drink. I didn't really talk to the bar patrons as much, mostly because I knew I wouldn't get a tip, so I had never spoken to him. Considering this, I thought it was strange when one day he asked to sit in my section. I thought maybe he just thought I was cute and wanted a chance to talk, so I kind of just went with it. I knew something was off pretty much from the start. He told me that he felt like he had to protect me, that something or someone told him to look out for me. He told me his name, which was different than the one he gave to the bartenders, and that he worked for the government in some capacity. He also told me about his abuse at the hands of his father, and how his girlfriend had died of a drug overdose in his arms. I thought all of this was weird, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt, trying to be sympathetic to someone who maybe struggled with mental illness. The way he spoke was off, like he would mumble some things or start a thought and move on to another one in the middle of a story. Despite this, I thought he was an interesting guy, and we had some things in common, both English majors in college, similar musical tastes, etc. After that initial conversation, he would come sit in my section whenever he came in, abandoning his usual spot at the bar. I think I was just so relieved to finally have a regular customer that I overlooked the many red flags that presented themselves. For example, he somehow knew about my boyfriend's name and where he worked, even though I'm pretty certain I never gave him that information. He kept trying to get me to give him more information about myself. Once he sat in my section all night and gave me cash every time I told him a factoid. He told me that he could sense I was sad and that I felt alone and that no one cared. This set off some alarm in my brain, as it sounded like abuser speak to me, but I shrugged it off, figuring he couldn't hurt me when I was at work, with so many people around. As he was leaving, he told me that he had completed several missions that night, and only had one left. When I asked him what that was, he looked me right in the eye and said, "You?" At one point, he told me he used to be a college English professor in another state, and that he had been published. I was intrigued, so I asked him to bring me a copy of the article. He did, and I was able to get his full name from the copy. When I looked it up later, I found that he had been busted for a prostitution ring the year before, but was apparently out on bail. Or maybe he pleaded insanity or something. I wasn't about to ask him about it. Fast forward a month or so. I had left that job for unrelated reasons, but he would still text me occasionally. He once sent me a message using a girl's name, probably assuming I hadn't saved his number. So I decided to mess with him and sent him a gross about being on my period or something, hoping he would take the hint and leave me alone, which he did. One night, my roommate, who worked at the same place, called me several times and left a voicemail for me to call her ASAP. When I finally responded, she told me that he had asked to be seated in her section and talked about me angrily. He cited the message I had sent him, saying it was clear I didn't want to talk to him. She said he was visibly agitated and that he would sometimes appear to be talking to someone who wasn't there. I should mention here that I had told her about him before and mentioned that he seemed a little off, but she told me not to worry about it. He then proceeded to tell her the same things he told me, with more sinister stuff mixed in. She's a much fierier individual than I am, so after a bit, she got irritated with him and yelled at him that she couldn't understand what he was talking about, and that he should go. She had already told the manager twice that he was making her uncomfortable that evening, and the manager just brushed it off because this guy was a regular. This guy also asked her to approach another bar patron and ask him about purchasing a gun. I guess the guy owned a gun store or sold guns on the DL, because he had already asked and the guy told him to get lost. At that point, she was able to finally get the manager involved, since he was trying to obtain an illegal firearm on the premises. He was escorted out and told not to come back. He sent me a few more messages after that, one in which he accused me of being a witch because he had had a dream about me. I never responded and blocked his number, and I haven't heard anything since. I'm just glad I quit when I did. I don't want to think what could have happened if I had continued to talk to him. 3. This story happened last summer when I was still in college and living in an apartment. I had 2 other roommates who lived with me. My one roommate, Ali, was originally from a city about 45 minutes from our school, so she went home a lot on weekends. My other roommate, Kate, and I were both from out of state, so we never really went home. So summer rolls around, and Ali accepted an internship in her hometown and left for the summer. So it was just me and Kate. We both had internships in town and worked 40 hours a week, so we didn't really see each other except on weekends. My apartment complex was large and had an open layout, so everyone's front doors were accessible from outside. You didn't have to be buzzed in or anything. We lived on the first floor. We also had a lot of friends who lived in our same complex. We would often leave our doors unlocked during the day when we were home in case anyone popped in to say hi. It was a Friday, which meant I didn't have to go into work until noon. All the executives had meetings in the morning, and since I was an intern, I wasn't required to be there. Kate, however, still left at her usual time of 8:30, leaving the door unlocked. Nothing uncommon about that. She knew I would be up soon. Plus it was 8:30 a.m. What could happen? I was getting ready for work in my bathroom, with the door closed around 10 a.m., when I heard our front door swing open. I figured it must have been one of my friends, wanting to borrow something, or Kate had left her lunch here. I waited a minute for my friend to yell my name or raid my fridge, but I didn't hear anything. I suddenly got a very uneasy feeling. I stuck my head out and didn't see anything initially. Then I stepped out and turned towards the kitchen. Standing in my kitchen was a middle-aged man with his back to me. "Excuse me, can I help you?" I yelled. The man turned around, looking very surprised to see me. He was holding a grocery bag with something in it. I couldn't see what it was. He stared at me for about 5 seconds before telling me he was maintenance, and we had called about an issue with our sink. I immediately felt like an idiot for being so rude, and thought Kate had put in a request and not told me. She had done this before. He then mumbled something along the lines of he didn't have the proper tools to fix the problem, so he would have to come back later. He then breezed past me and went out the door. Weird. I immediately texted Kate and bitched at her for not telling me he was coming. She didn't respond, so I continued getting ready for work and left. Around 2 p.m, Kate called me on her break to explain she never put in a maintenance request. I immediately got a nervous feeling. She told me to call our manager's office and report it. I told my manager the story, and he was not exactly very concerned and just blew me off. My apartment complex was pretty safe. The only time I ever saw a police car was to bust some idiots throwing beer bottles off their balcony. The next day, I continued to rationalize to myself that the guy had been maintenance and he was just confused. By the weekend, I had basically forgotten about it. Kate left Friday night for the weekend, meaning I had the apartment to myself, which never happens, so I was pumped. This was around the time of the NBA playoffs, and our hometown team was playing Saturday night, so me and a few of my friends went to a bar to watch the game. We left around 8, and decided to call tonight around 2 a.m. My friends were taking an Uber, but were headed in a different direction than me, so I opted to walk. Taking the long way meant I was coming from the opposite direction of where I usually walked in from the parking lot. I could see my windows first from the street, then have to walk around up a few steps to get to my front door. As I got closer to my apartment, I could tell something was off with the windows. I could see Ali's window was just barely cracked open. First of all, Ali has been gone since May, and it was the end of June. Then as I got even closer, I saw the screen looked funny. It was sideways, like it had been popped out and then been put back in upside down. Now listen, I'm not one to overreact, but I knew for a fact that window had been closed before I left for the bar. So I noped the fuck out of there and ran to my friend's apartment on the 3rd floor, where I called the police. I went down when they got there and reiterated the situation to them. They told me to go back to my friend's apartment and wait until they told me it was okay to come out. After about 2 minutes, a cop walked out with, you guessed it, the fucking weirdo who was in my kitchen the day before. The cop was holding this big-ass hunting knife in his hand. Nope, nope, nope. I really wish the police hadn't told me what I'm about to write, because it still haunts me. They found the creep hiding behind my couch in the living room, holding a hunting knife wrapped in a Kroger bag. Even creepier, had I not walked home and noticed the messed up window, I would have just walked in the front door from the parking lot unknowingly. I had a lot to drink that night, and I just planned on going right into my room and passing out. I would have fallen asleep with this guy still in my apartment. I know for a fact he wasn't just planning on hanging out. So, weirdo non-maintenance guy, let's not meet. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 86. Well, that's 2 videos I've knocked out tonight so far, and I'm completely knackered. That's tired, if you've never heard that expression before. Don't know where it came from, actually. Kind of afraid to ask. But that being said, I think I've earned a nice yummy dinner now, so I'm going to have to love you and leave you. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.